Hello and welcome to this fourth in our series of webcasts on RapidDeploy version 4.0 basics. And today I'm going to make a slight departure from what I'd intended to do in that I'm going to insert an extra webcast looking at deployment to Tomcat. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create a Tomcat installation, and we're going to then deploy a WAR file to it, a simple WAR file. And the reason I decided to do this is because I think that the Tomcat deployment really is a very useful bridge between the demos that we've done so far on basic file systems and scripts and simple tasks, which don't require any environments or any external resources typically to be configured, and the more technical deployments to WebSphere and WebLogic and JBoss, etc., sort of the bigger application servers, the enterprise application servers later on. So I installed this. I put this one in to sort of show some of those features. So today we're going to be looking at how we use environments and external resources to help us to do our deployments. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and log in, and this is the RapidDeploy installation that we've been using up to now. So we've got the projects that we originally configured in here. What I'm going to do now is I'm firstly going to add an external resource to download the latest Tomcat 7 binaries. Now I could install Tomcat 8 or Tomcat 9 with our Tomcat 7 plugin. You're quite happy to go off and do that. But I've got Java 1.6 installed on my Mac, so they wouldn't actually work without installing a later version of Java. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Resources, Libraries, and I'm going to create a new resource library. Okay, so we add here a resource library. Now I'm going to give that a name. I'm going to call it Tomcat 7 Binary Install Package. The type of this resource library is an HTTP file library. In other words, we're going to download the zip file for the HTTP server installation from the internet. Just going to put a description in here. Now the environment type, I'm going to choose unknown at this point. Now this enables us to force the linking between an environment type, which could be development, test, production, and you can create your own environment types, and a resource. So this allows us to deploy resources to, say, for example, all environment types, or where the resource is something like a database library or a URL library. Clearly we don't want to deploy a development database library or database URL library to a production environment by accident. So this allows us to say, no, this resource is only for a particular type of environment, which we can define, and then you will not be able to choose this resource for any other types of environments. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. Once I've created it, I can then open it and actually define the resources. So I need to define here the URL. So we want to take the core zip file. So I'm going to copy that link address, and I'm going to go and put that back in here. Okay, I'm going to download that to the temp directory, and I'm going to select the file name to call it as just the same zip file. I don't need to specify any authentication to get to this, and I don't need any proxy settings, although I can configure them. I can check that resource exists, and I can see that it sees that that is a valid resource. So this will be downloaded to the temp directory and called Apache Tomcat 7086.zip and included whenever we create a deployment package. If that file hasn't changed, it won't be re-downloaded. So I'm going to save that resource. Okay. And if we go back to the libraries, we can see that that resource has been created. Right, now we need to create a project. So I'm going to go ahead and run the Add Project wizard to create the project that we need. Call it Tomcat 7 install. Oops. Okay, so we can just accept the defaults here. If we do delete this project, I want it to delete the project files as well on disk. So this is all fine. And I'm going to create a new target for this. So this is the first deployment that we'll do to create this install. We can then clone that to add other ones, but this is just the initial one. I'm going to create a server called Tomcat_Linux. I'm going to give it an environment name of, let's say, Tomcat 7, and I'll give it an application name of Binaries. I'm not going to choose a template. I'm going to create this entirely manually, and we're going to create this project. Okay, so now we've got the Tomcat 7 install project. We're going to go and edit this project now. We're going to select the resource that we want. And we're going to go on to orchestration, and we're going to add some tasks into our orchestration. Let's go down to Tomcat. We'll add a binary install task. Then after the binary install task, we're going to add an update Tomcat user task. So this is going to be a copy task. I'll explain what I'm going to do with this in a moment. And then after that, we'll add a start Tomcat server task. Okay, so we're going to do the install. We're then going to copy a file into that install, which is the Tomcat users file, which we'll create in a moment. And then we're going to start the Tomcat server. The reason for copying this Tomcat users file is to allow the authentication to be set up when we do the deployment. You will probably want to change this to be whatever your standard users are and passwords, etc. I'm just going to rename this task so that people will know what it is. Right, and then we'll save this. Okay, so I'm actually going to go back in and edit it again. If we look at the binary install task, there's nothing we really need to set up on here. This is just going to happen automatically. Where it gets the parameters from will be the environment panel, which I'll show you in a moment. So a lot of the tasks that are the non-trivial or the non-simple tasks don't actually configure any of the task parameters on the task itself. We just add the task into the orchestration, and the parameters and environment variables are added on the environment panel, and I'm going to show you that in a moment when we go to have a look at it. Okay, so let's go to the Tomcat users task. We're going to copy the Tomcat users file from somewhere inside our archive when we're going to put it in our archive, and we're going to copy it to the target installation. So since it's in our archive, we use the archive root environment variable to identify where that is, because that will change on every deployment. We'll create a Tomcat directory inside our project, and underneath that we'll put Tomcat users.xml, and this is a standard Tomcat file. And we're going to copy that to user local Tomcat 7, which is where we're actually going to do the Tomcat installation. And then Tomcat has a conf directory underneath the base install of Tomcat, and we'll put that file there. Okay, I'm going to save that. Right, so now we've set up our orchestration. we need to add that file into the correct location. This tab, and this is really showing us all the files that we have underneath this project on our target server. So underneath the Tomcat 7 install directory, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new directory. So I need to go into edit mode first. And I'm going to call that directory Tomcat. And in that Tomcat directory I'm going to create a new file, which I'm going to call tomcat-users.xml. And then I'm going to copy in what I need into that file. Now, I could of course manually have done this on the command line inside our project, but this just shows that you can actually, quite easily edit, copy, upload files into your project from your desktop or anywhere if you've got the permissions to do so. Okay, so I've got the Tomcat users file here. This is the one I want to use. I'm just going to paste this in here. You can see that we've got a user Tomcat with password Tomcat, which has all the required roles to allow us to access the admin console, etc. Okay, so we'll save this, and then we'll save the project. Okay, so now we've got all of our resources and we've got our project configured. If we go onto the target that we created when we first created this project, it created a server and it created an environment. Now it's done this automatically for us, but we need to now go and configure those. So the server is the server that we're going to deploy to, and at the moment we're just going to let this be localhost. So I'm just going to change this to localhost here. And we're going to check the transport, and the transport is in fact the remote agent, the agent port 20,000. Okay, so we'll save that. Now if we look at this Tomcat Linux server, we can list the environments that are contained on it. We've got a Tomcat 7 one, and as we know this was created when we created the project. We can edit this environment. Go to the product tab and select the correct product, which is this Tomcat 7. Now if you remember, as I said earlier, although it's called Tomcat 7, this plugin will work for Tomcat 8 and 9 as well. So the install path is the one thing we really need to configure here, which is going to be user local Tomcat 7. Now the other thing is, where are we going to connect to? Well, it'll be localhost 8080 by default, and as we saw, the username is Tomcat, and the password, I'll just make sure that's right, is Tomcat. And the application that we're going to deploy to that later on, when we create the next project, is going to be Examples Web App. And this goes to show how we can share this environment between different projects. So one project to actually create the environment, another one to run a deployment. Okay, so we'll save that. Now we're going to go back to projects. So by saving that environment, that will have exported all of the configuration on that environment panel to all of the projects that consumes it. In this case, it's just the Tomcat 7 install project. I'm going to go and edit that project now and create a package to deploy. Okay, so we go to packages, delete, I'm going to create a package. And I'm going to hit refresh, and it will take a while for this package to show up, because it's actually now, when it's creating the package, it's going off to the Apache website and it's pulling down that zip file, which is reasonably large, and so it takes a while to create the package. And that's why we make the package creation asynchronous. If we go and look at running jobs, we can see that, well, there it is, it actually has just finished. You can go and view the log there and see that it has downloaded that package. Okay, so now we're going to execute the job to install the Tomcat binaries. We're going to install them in user local, where we don't currently have any Tomcat installation. So let's go and execute that job. Skip to finish here. Start the job. Okay, we can watch that go through. We can view the logs in real time. So the install is quite quick, and it's now started the Tomcat server up and is now completed. Okay, let's look at the log file. So we've run the install job, we've updated the Tomcat user file, and we've started the Tomcat server. So in theory we should be able to access the application at localhost 8080. There we have Tomcat running. Okay, so this is a basic install. We can go to the Manager app and we can see everything that's installed here. We don't see the examples web app at the moment, so the next job is to install that. Okay, so to do that we're going to go and create another project in RapidDeploy. So we'll go to Resources, Projects, and we'll use the Add Project wizard to add another project. Okay, so we'll call this project Tomcat 7 Examples Web App Deployment. Okay, we can leave most of these as the default. Now we will create a first target. We'll pick the already existing Tomcat Linux that we created last time. We'll choose Tomcat 7, and this time we'll call it Examples Web App, and we'll create this project. Okay, so that's now been created. We don't need to worry about the environment, we've already got that. What we will need to do though is add the external resource to download that web app from the internet. I mean, we could pull that from the internet, we could pull it from another project, it doesn't really matter. So let's call that Examples Web App Application WAR file. And the type will be the HTTP file library. The environment type again we'll set to unknown. We'll create this. We'll open it. Okay, so we need to choose a URL. I happen to have the URL here, which is it's just downloading off our website, the Examples Web App. Again, we'll put it in /temp, and we'll call it Examples Web App.war for the temporary location. Okay, and we will check that that resource exists. It does, so we'll just save that. And now we can go to check that those resources are configured. There we have it, Examples Web App Application WAR file. I'm going to go and add that now to the project. So we'll add this resource to the project, and we can select from any of the resources that have been created here that are available for our project. So you can bring many different resources together in a single project and then run the different tasks on them if you wish to. We're also going to go to orchestration, and we're going to add the new tasks that we need for that. The first task we'll do is we'll have a start Tomcat server task. So if the server isn't running, we're going to start it up first. And then we'll add another task to do the actual Tomcat deployment. So we'll add that. Now we don't need to configure these two tasks because they're going to pull all of their configuration from the environment that we've already created for the install task, and we don't really need to change that. We've already specified examples web app. So we'll save that. And then we'll go over to the packages and we'll add a package. Now, this will probably be quicker because it's a very small, it's only about a 2 kilobyte file, I think, the examples web app. So that's created that package straight away. So let's go and run a deployment. We'll select the Tomcat 7 examples web app. And we'll start the job. So the Tomcat server is already running, so it won't restart it. It takes it a little while to figure that out. Then it does the deployment and completes the job. Again, we can quickly have a view of the log file if we wish. Okay, so we can see the start Tomcat server task is run, and then we can see the deployment job. So it's deploying the examples web app WAR from within inside the archive, and it's using the URL of localhost 8080 manager to access that. Okay, so if we come out of there and then go back into the manager app and we refresh that, we can see the examples web app has now been deployed. And if we click on that, we can just see the hello page that produces. So now that we've done these two deployments to localhost, what I'm going to do now is clone this target to a remote server, and we're going to access that as we run our deployment. Okay, so firstly let's go to Tomcat 7 install. We'll edit that and go to the targets. And we're going to clone this target by clicking on this button here. And we're going to give it a new name, a new server name. I'm going to call that AWS Red Hat. We'll leave the other things the same. We don't need to configure any data dictionary items as we don't have any. So now we're going to create this target. Okay, and this creates a server called AWS Red Hat, which we can click on and we can edit. Now we need to store the artifacts that we copy over onto that target somewhere. That's called the remote build store. We're going to store those in /tmp, and we need to configure the host name. Okay, well here in this directory I've already set up an SSH to the target. So the target is actually this address here on Amazon. So I'm going to copy the host name and paste it into here. And then on the transport type, I'm going to change it from remote agent to SSH. And the user we'll be connecting as is the default EC2 user. We have an SSH key file, so I'll just find out where that is. So we're in this directory. I'll cut and paste that into the key file path. And the key file itself is this. And I'm actually going to want to, there's a whole load of settings here that you can set. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can add a username and password or a passphrase for a key file. you can specify where the Java is that you're going to use on the target server, or you can get RapidDeploy to install Java for you. You can change the file permissions of any files copied over onto the RD target server. What I am going to set, though, because we're running this as EC2 user when we log in, I actually want the deployment to run as root. So I'm going to run sudo, and I'm going to do su minus, and what this does, su minus c, and then followed by a quote, and then the ending execution parameter is a quote. This puts any command inside that enclosing command, so that all of this will run as root. So I'm going to save that. Now if we go down to the environments that this is using, go to the Tomcat 7 environment, we'll edit that. So we need to again change this to be where we want it to install, which is going to be user local Tomcat 7. And we need to change localhost for the previous environment to, oops, need to get the host name again. We'll save this. Okay, so we've now created our server and our target environment. So we can also use the quick view to go back to the project, and we can create a new package for this project. So I'll create a package. While we're waiting for that to get created, I'm going to go back to AWS Red Hat. I can click on the transport here. I can just click test connection. This is testing that not only can we connect to the server, the target server, but also that this remote build store directory is available and writable, so that we know that we're going to be able to copy the files onto that target. Okay, so let's try running a job on that server. So we'll now select the AWS Red Hat package. See that version 7 has now appeared, and I'm going to start that job. Now this is going to copy the various files over onto that target. Then it's going to run the binary install task, the update Tomcat users task, etc. Just wait for that to complete. So while we're waiting for that, we can go into the project directory. We can go and edit the examples web app project, and we can create the same target over here. So this time we'll select AWS Red Hat, and now we've got the Tomcat 7. So this is selecting the correct Tomcat 7 environment. Again, we don't have any data dictionary items, so now we can create that target. Okay, so now we've also got the target for the examples web app. We can create a new package with that target in it. We can refresh when that package has been created. Just go back to running jobs. So we can select this job. See how this is going. So it's still copying that Tomcat 7 install jar. It is quite a large jar, and my network is a little slower from my desktop. So it's now completed that. It's running the update Tomcat users task, and it's now calling the Tomcat start Tomcat server task. So what I can do now is I can try and connect to that. So if we go back into here and pull out the host name, on 8080. So we can see that we can access that application. We can go to the Manager app. We can put in username and password, and that takes us to the app. Okay, so we'll now deploy the examples web app to this target, and we should be able to see the Hello application running. So let's go back into RapidDeploy. We'll go into the Tomcat 7 examples web app project, and remember we need to create a new package with the new environment that we've defined. So we'll hit create package, refresh. We've got deployment 003. So we go to jobs, new job, select that examples web app project. We'll select the AWS Red Hat Tomcat 7 target. We've got the 003 there. Skip to finish, and we'll start this job. So that's completed copying everything over. It's now starting Tomcat. It's then done the Tomcat deployment of the examples web app, and now it's finished. So we go back over onto that manager on the EC2 instance and we refresh. We now see the examples web app. We can click on it and that's running. Okay, so that's the end of the demo I wanted to do today, and you can find all of the projects that I used in this webcast if you go to so on the portal.midvision.com website. You can go into the RapidDeploy directory, example RapidDeploy projects, and you can download and then install into your version of RapidDeploy both of these projects that are pre-configured, so that you don't have to create them yourself if you don't want to. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon with the next webcast where we will be looking at WebSphere binary install and deployment. Thank you.